Welcome back to my channel. I appreciate you checking out this video. In today's video, I'm going to read and talk about A Short Guide to a Happy Life by Anna Quindlen. Generally, I read these books before I make these videos and share my key takeaways with you and big ideas, but I thought I'd mix it up a little bit in this video. And since this book is so short, lots of pictures in this book, sometimes whole page pictures such as this. So since it's so short, I decided to do something a little different and read it and talk about the ideas we come across in real time and share those with you. I was inspired to make this video because one, I've had this book for a long time and been curious to read it and find out what it's all about. But two, you may be aware that I recently launched my guide to winning the game of life. I call it One Life, which is an all-in-one, done-for-you system for living. These are all the things that I use on my own journey to help me win my creative battles, push through the fear, doubt, and resistance, continuously find clarity in the vision that I have for my life, right? It's a system based on gamification. It has hero's journey concepts written in there. It's basically how to win the game of life. And the key is make sure you're playing your game, playing your strengths, doing your mission, right? A while back, I talked about Richard Bolus' video, How to Find Your Mission in Life, which is super critical to winning the game of life, because if you don't know yourself, and you don't know what your mission is, P.S., the key takeaway from that book right there is knowing your talents. What talents did God give you? And knowing where you like to use those talents, how you like to use those talents. That's the key to winning the game of life or finding your mission in life, based on what Richard Bolus talks about. He's the guy that wrote What Color Is Your Parachute? So I'm super, super interested in, making sure we live a happy, meaningful, fulfilling, purpose-driven life. I'm super passionate about it, and that's why I created the guide right there. You can learn more about One Life, the guide that I created, at thisismyonelife.com. So that's kind of why I was inspired to read this book and talk about what she has to say. So before we jump in, let me just tell you, I'm going to read the back cover here and talk about who Anna Quindlen is. Anna Quindlen is the author of 3 best-selling books, Object Lessons, One True Thing, and Black and Blue. Her New York Times column, Public and Private, won a Pulitzer Prize in 1992. That's something huge. And a selection of those columns was published as Thinking Out Loud. She is also the author of a collection of, she's also the author of a collection of her Life in the 30s columns, Living Out Loud, a book for the Library of Contemporary Thought, How Reading Changed My Life, and 2 children's books, The Tree That Came to Stay and Happily Ever After. She is currently a columnist for Newsweek and resides with her husband and children in New York City. And this book appeared to be published in 2000 by Random House. Now let's read the inscription on the inside flap. She's got a quote at the top, and it says, "Life is made of moments, small pieces of glittering mica in a long stretch of gray cement. It would be wonderful if they came to us unsummoned, but particularly in lives as busy as the ones most of us lead now, that won't happen. We have to teach ourselves how to live, really live, to love the journey, not the destination." That's pretty good right there. Like that's a capture moment. That's a framer. That's really good. I like it. In this treasure of a book, Anna Quindlen, the best-selling novelist and columnist, reflects on what it takes to get a life, to live deeply every day and from your own unique self, rather than merely to exist through your days. Knowledge of our own mortality is the greatest gift God ever gives us. That's awesome. I love that. Quindlen writes, "Because unless you know the clock is ticking, it is so easy to waste our days, our lives." Isn't that true? Her mother died when Quindlen was 19. It was the dividing line between seeing the world in black and white and in Technicolor. The lights came on for the darkest possible reason. I learned something enduring in a very short period of time about life. And that was that it was glorious and that you had no business taking it for granted, but how to live from that perspective to fully engage in our days. In A Short Guide to a Happy Life, Quindlen guides us with an understanding that comes from knowing how to see the view, the richness in living. That's pretty good right there. I'll tell you one thing, definitely facing our own mortality, seeing friends and family pass away and or struggle in certain ways, it definitely helps tune me up. I swear every time that happens in my own life, I dig deeper and I definitely re-engage with my purpose and my mission, which if you didn't know is to enhance the human experience. That's why I write those books and create that guide and do this YouTube channel. Also key right in there, all the things that I'm doing on my journey, I baked into this guide right here. Super important to know your mission in life, to know your core values. My top 3 core values are fun, freedom, and full self-expression. I encourage you to, go for 10 if you can, but definitely know your top 3 because that's super important. But I really like that cover right there. Super good. So let's jump in here and see what A Short Guide to a Happy Life has to say that we can learn from. I'm not particularly qualified by profession or education to give advice or counsel. It's widely known in a small circle that I make a mean tomato sauce, and I know many inventive ways to hold a baby while nursing. Okay? Although I haven't had the opportunity to use any of them in years. I have a good eye for a nice watch and a surprising paint chip. And I have had checkered, but occasionally successful sideline in matchmaking. But I've never earned a doctorate or even a master's degree. I'm not an ethicist or a philosopher or an expert in any particular field. Each time I give my commencement speech, I feel like a bit of a fraud. It's understandable. Yogi Berra's advice seems as good as any. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. I can't talk about the economy or the universe or academicians as academicians like to call where they work when they're feeling kind of grand. I'm a novelist. My work is human nature. Real life is really all I know. Don't ever confuse the two, your life and your work. That's what I have to say. The second is only a part of the first. Don't ever forget what a friend once wrote to Senator Paul Tsongas when the senator had decided not to run for re-election because he'd been diagnosed with cancer. Quote, "No man ever said on his deathbed, 'I wish I had spent more time at the office.'" End quote. Don't ever forget the words on a postcard that my father sent me last year. Quote, "If you win the rat race, you're still a rat." True. Or what John Lennon wrote before he was gunned down in the driveway of the Dakota. Quote, "Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans." That's the only advice I can give. After all, when you look at the faces of a class of graduating seniors, you realize that each student has only one thing that no one else has. When you leave college, there are thousands of people out there with the same degree. You have. When you get a job, there will be thousands of people doing what you want to do for a living. But you are the only person alive who has sole custody of your life. Your particular life, your entire life. Not just your life at a desk or your life on the bus or in the car or at the computer. Not just the life of your mind, but the life of your heart. Not just your bank account, but your soul. That's good so far. It's power packed. She's packing a lot in there. I like all the quotes from the people about your rat. If you win the rat race, life is what happens when you're making other plans. That's all good stuff. Let's continue. People don't talk about the soul very much anymore. It's so much easier to write a resume than to craft a spirit. But a resume is cold comfort on a winter night. And when you're sad or broke or lonely, or when you've gotten back the chest x-ray, and it doesn't look so good, or when the doctor writes prognosis poor, here is my resume. It's not what my professional bio says, proud as I am of all that. I'm a good mother to 3 good children. I have tried never to let my profession stand in the way of being a good parent. I no longer consider myself the center of the universe. I show up, I listen, I try to laugh. I am a good friend to my husband. I have tried to make my marriage vows mean what they say. I show up, I listen, I try to laugh. I'm a good friend to my friends, and they to me. Without them, I would have nothing of interest to say to anyone because I would be a cardboard cutout. That is so awesome. Let's read that again. I am a good friend to my friends, and they to me. Without them, I would have nothing of interest to say to anyone because I would be a cardboard cutout. That's powerful. I feel the same way about friends. I mean, friends and family. I mean, at the top of, again, in this guide, I have one of the tools is to count your blessings every day. And at the top of my blessings, what do you think is there? My family and friends. Like, I feel like I won the freaking lottery because of the family and friends that I have. And she nailed it with this one right here. I mean, our friends in particular, family maybe not so much, but friends, because we can choose who we hang out with. I mean, I find value in all people and all my friends in different ways, but the friends that are kind of on my same journey, doing the same thing that I'm doing, interested in the same thing that I'm doing, at the deepest level, they're sounding boards. You can bounce ideas off them. They can, if they read something or watch something that you might like, they send it to you and vice versa. So I really resonate with that. Let me know what you think in the comments down below about friends. Let's continue. But I call them on the phone and I meet them for lunch. I show up, I listen, I try to laugh. I would be rotten or at best mediocre at my job if those other things were not true. You cannot be really first rate at your work if your work is all you are. That's powerful right there. So I suppose the best piece of advice I could give anyone is pretty simple. Get a life, a real life, not a manic pursuit of the next promotion, the bigger paycheck, the larger house. Do you think you'd care so much about those things if you developed an aneurysm one afternoon or found a lump in your breast while in the shower? Get a life in which you notice the smell. See, lots of big pictures in this book, sometimes one whole picture on one page. I'll show you the pictures at the end. So let's see. Get a life in which you notice the smell of salt water pushing itself on a breeze over the dunes. A life in which you stop and watch how a red-tailed hawk circles over a pond and a stand of pines. Get a life in which you pay attention to the baby as she scowls with concentration when she tries to pick up a Cheerio with her thumb and first finger. Turn off your cell phone. Turn off your regular phone for that matter. Keep still, be present. Get a life in which you are not alone. Find people you love and who love you. And remember that love is not leisure. It is work. You know what they say, love is a verb, and it's all about the action, right? Each time I look at my diploma, I remember that I am still a student, still learning every day how to be human. That's powerful too. That's one of the things that I find so enriching in life is that you can never know too much. You can never learn too much. And I just love learning about new things. My latest new thing is like learning health and wellness and medicine at a deeper level, because as I look around and I see what appears to be like the complete and total breakdown of our medical system and kind of the weird twist of it, not to mention high costs, I like digging in deeper. Supplements, exercise, practices like meditation, breathing, walking, all those other things, stretching, mobility. It's the next level, but I love continually learning. I find it to be, it makes my life more rich and rewarding and exciting. It gives me something to do. We'll never be done learning. That's my theory anyway. Send an email, write a letter, kiss your mom, hug your dad. Get a life in which you are generous. Look around at the azaleas making fuchsia starbursts in spring. Look at a full moon hanging silver in a black sky on a cold night and realize that life is glorious and that you have no business taking it for granted. That is the key right there to life. Don't take anything for granted. And look, that's like looking for the blessings every day, right? Um, Again, one of the key practices to living a happy life is to notice magic and miracles and blessings in your good fortune every day and serendipitous events. I find it to be super powerful because, again, it shifts your perspective and makes you look for more of those things. And what do we find in life? We find what we look for. Let's continue. Care so deeply about its goodness that you want to spread it around. Take the money you would have spent on beers in a bar and give it to charity. Work in a soup kitchen. Tutor a seventh grader. All of us want to do well. But if we do not do good too, then doing well will never be enough. Live by the words of this poem by Gwendolyn Brooks. Exhaust the little moment, soon it dies. And be it gash or gold, it will not come. Again, in this identical disguise. Wow, that's really good. Life is short, remember that too. I've always known this, or almost always. I've been living with mortality for decades, since my mother died of ovarian cancer when she was 40 and I was 19. And this is what I learned from that experience. That knowledge of our own mortality is the greatest gift God ever gives. That is powerful right there. Let me talk about that for just a moment. The way I look at that is this. In the game of life, right? You got one life. You want to make it count. You want to do your work in the world. Like she said, show up every day, give 100%, get your heart and mind in the game, leave it all on the playing field of life, whatever game you're playing, right? The way I look at life is this, especially as I go on. I am very aware that death is my greatest ally in the game of life because death is always there saying, hey, I'm coming for you one day. Could be tomorrow, could be next week, could be next month, could be 30 or 40 years from now. But one day I'm coming for you. In the game of life that I'm playing, I know that death is my greatest ally. And when I see people close to me either become sick or die, it reminds me that death is coming for me too. And I find it to be very powerful. Sometimes it's an uncomfortable feeling depending on the mindset that I'm in, but at the end of the day, it's a powerful tool to help us stay focused, do our work in the world, overcome the fear, the doubt, the limiting beliefs, all those things. Otherwise, if there was no end, there would be no sense of urgency. That's how I look at it. So I do agree with her a lot about what she says there. Let's continue. Oh, I want to also share one other thing. I don't have it with me, but I also keep a coin. It's a memento mori coin. There's a whole bunch of stuff on the coin. There's a passage on the back, and it's something to the effect of, I should know it. I forget it. It's something to the effect of like, stay on your game, do your thing, do your work in the world. But on the front, it says, memento mori, fugit tempo, which I think that's what it says, but it's like time flies, and also remember to live, which is, I think it's memento vivere. And it's a little coin I just keep on my desk as I'm working or put it in my pocket. And again, memento mori, remember that you're going to die, right? Stoic, Greek origins, correct me if I'm wrong. I find it to be super powerful. Okay, let's continue. It is so easy to waste our lives, our days, our hours, our minutes. It's so easy to take for granted the pale new growth on an evergreen, the sheen of the limestone on Fifth Avenue, the color of our kids' eyes, the way the melody in a symphony rises and falls and disappears and rises again. It's so easy to exist instead of to live. That is powerful. It's so easy to exist instead of live. I call that kind of going on autopilot. Sometimes when I'm not on my game, I may go on autopilot for multiple days. That's not a good way to live because we're not drinking deeply from life, right? Speaking of drinking deeply, I love that statement. Okay. Unless you know there is a clock ticking, so many of us changed our lives. Excuse me. Yeah, unless you know there is a clock ticking, so many of us changed our lives when we heard a biological clock and decided to have kids. But that sound is a murmur compared to the tolling of mortality. Maybe you come to feel the way I feel, and you've come to feel that way for a very difficult or demanding reason. One day you were walking around worrying about whether you had anything to wear to a party and reminding yourself to buy kitty litter or toilet paper. And then you were in the shower lathering up, or you were lying on a doctor's table, or the phone rang, and your world suddenly divided, as my world did many years ago. It divided into before and after. Before, for me, was my freshman year of college. Then I found myself able for the first time in my life to swear at meals. Excuse me, when I found myself able for the first time in my life to swear at meals and not be reprimanded, or go out at midnight and not have anyone tell me where I was, going after, was the beginning of what would have been my sophomore year, when I found myself out of school making meatloaf and administering morphine in a development house in the suburbs. It is amazing how much you can learn in 1 year. Just like Paul, who was knocked off his mule into the dust on the way to Damascus and discovered God. I had a rude awakening. I'm not sure I learned anything much about mortality or death or pain or even love, although in the years since, I have found that one horrible year has given me a perspective on all those things I wouldn't otherwise have had. Before and after for me was not just before my mother's illness and after her death. It was the dividing line between seeing the world in black and white and in technicolor. The lights came on for one darkest possible reason. And I went back to school and I looked around at all the kids I knew who found it kind of a drag and who weren't sure if they could really hack it and who thought life was a bummer. And I knew that I had undergone a sea change because I was never again going to be able to see life as anything except a great gift. That is so awesome. That's so awesome. It's ironic that we forget so often how wonderful life really is. We have more time than ever before to remember it. The men and women of generations past had to work long, long hours to support lots and lots of children in tiny, tiny houses. The women worked in factories and sweatshops, and then at home too, with two bosses, the one who paid them and the one they were married to, who didn't. That's an interesting perspective. I do think in many ways our society is better and in many ways worse, right? I mean, they didn't have the distraction of technology, infinite scrolling, technology addiction that we had, but they did have more manual labor. They didn't have the amenities, maybe indoor plumbing, hot water, the readily available food, abundance of food choices we have now. I mean, every time I walk into a grocery store, when I'm on my game, I am reminded of the abundance of the United States and in many parts of the world, not all parts of the world. Some parts of the world are still living like we all lived at one point in time, not a lot of abundance, not a lot of food and groceries in the grocery store per se, even to even have a grocery store. But, it's pluses and minuses, isn't it? Let's continue. There are new generations of immigrants now who work just as hard, but those of us who are second and third and fourth generation are surrounded by nice cars, family rooms, patios, pools, the things our grandparents thought only rich people had, right? That's another interesting perspective. When you really break it down, especially if you live in the West, you probably live better than kings and queens in days of old. I'm not even going to say probably. I'm going to say unequivocally, you live better than kings and queens in days of old. And I mean, way up until could be even the 1900s, right? The amenities, heating, water, uh, access to food and water and healthcare and education. I mean, it is no doubt many people in the West, even though the West has its problems, let's be real, we live better than many people of nobility in the past. Okay, let's see where we're at here. There are new generations. Oh, we read that part. Yet somehow, instead of rejoicing, we've found the glass half empty. Our jobs take too much out of us and don't pay enough. We're expected to pick up the kids at preschool and run the microwave at home. Come on, let's be honest. We have an embarrassment of riches. Life is good. I agree. I don't mean it in a cosmic way. I never think of my life or my world in any big cosmic way. I think of it in all its small component parts, the snowdrops, the daffodils, the feeling of one of my kids sitting close beside me on the couch, the way my husband looks when he reads with the lamp behind him, fettuccine alfredo, fudge, Gone with the Wind, Pride and Prejudice. Life is made up of moments, small pieces of glittering mica in a long stretch of gray cement. It would be wonderful if they came to us unsummoned, but particularly in lives as busy as the ones most of us lead now, that won't happen. We have to teach ourselves how to make room for them, to love them, and to live, really live. We do have to teach ourselves, right? Brain wants to go on autopilot. Brain wants to be like, we've seen that flower before. We've seen that thing before. We've seen that thing before. Instead of looking at it with the wonder and curiosity like a child, always. And I think that's why older people look to children, enjoy spending time with children, is because children still have that wonder, that inquisitiveness, that curiosity. Everything's brand new to them mostly, and lots of questions about the world in which we live. They haven't gone on autopilot yet because they can't. They're like, what's this? What's that? How does that work? Where are we going? When are we going to get there? Right? I like that. I learned to live many years ago. Something really bad happened to me, something that changed my life in ways that if I had had a choice, it would never have been changed at all. And what I learned from it is what today sometimes seems to be the hardest lesson of all. I learned to love the journey, not the destination. I learned that it is not a dress rehearsal and that today is the only guarantee you get. That's awesome. Let's talk about that for a moment. The way I think about that when she says she learns to love the journey is this. Two big ideas come into, again, from one life. Two big ideas in my own life are process and system. Processes and systems. She says she learned to love the journey. What I think about all the time is what I'm doing, right? With my YouTube channel, with my Focus and Flow product and apparel line, creating or writing or making videos, etc. I know that if I don't love the process, the end outcome's not going to be good either. And I know the most important thing is for me to fall in love with the process, right? Creating and editing videos, coming up with topics, promoting those videos, other tangential products, ways to be more helpful to you, my audience, more of service, because I'm a big fan of what Rabindranath Tagore said, that service is joy, right? You remember the poem, I slept and dreamt that life was something, something. I forget it at the moment, but the end part was I awakened and realized that service was joy. And it is joy. And here's the kicker. From my own experience, I've realized it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be serving sandwiches to someone. In my past life, I was a design consultant in office furniture and space planning. I loved that because I'm a design consultant helping people solve their spatial problems, right? Furniture problems. I've done a number of things in varied things. I'm sure you have done a number of things as well. I've worked in the library helping people find the books and resources that they want. I know firsthand that service is joy. Maybe you know firsthand that service is joy too. Giving someone some directions, that's joyful. Helping someone do things, teaching someone something. There's many ways to find joy in life because there's many ways to serve in life. I find it to be, you know, I find it to make life super enriching. But as far as her talking about learning to love the journey, that's super critical. It can be a trap if we're always looking at the destination. This is why in in manifestation circles, one of the biggest, most profound shifts a person can make is stop looking at your vision board so much. I mean, I think it's important to have goals of the things you want in life. In one life, I break life into 8 areas, and we talk about having goals in each of those areas or a vision, right? An outcome that you want to go for based on inspiration, not based on, oh, that looks fun out there, or that person looks like they're having fun, or the TV tells me I need that car. Don't put those things on your vision boards because we want to live an inspired life, right? One life is all about living from within, unpacking the blueprint that God put inside of you before you came into the world. That's your blueprint for the life that you are meant to build, the things you're meant to create in the world, the things you're meant to bring into this physical plane, turn from a thought to a thing, right? You're watching it right now for me. Mine is creating this talk show based about the human experience, writing these books, making One Life, making my product and apparel line Focus and Flow. Everything you create from an inspired place was meant to come through you. That's why the key to living a wonderful life, in my opinion, is knowing yourself first and foremost, and knowing your talents, and then doing your work in the world. That's the key. But it does all come back to, let me wrap up my thought here, where we were talking about the shift in manifestation that makes all the difference. Maybe don't spend so much time looking at the things that you don't have in life, because you'll be like, oh, boo-hoo, I don't have those things. It's always going to create within you a wanting or a lacking. Relationships, material things, etc. I find what works far better. I mean, spend a little bit of time, maybe use the 80-20 principle, the 90-10 principle. Spend a little bit of time focusing on and contemplating yourself. Again, this is in One Life, contemplating yourself, being the person you want to be, the vision for yourself that you want to be, having the experiences you want to have, doing the things that you want to have. But for the most part, I find it far more valuable to look at instead of a vision board, I call it like a reality board. What do you already have in your life? Friends and family, things, experiences. What do you have, or what have you had? Friends and family, experiences, things, even material things that you feel super blessed about, that makes you feel fortunate, that makes you feel grateful, right? It makes you feel deep appreciation for your life, because that is going to make you feel far, far better. And we know how we feel on the inside is going to manifest on the outside. We know that the spiritual world that we really live in, it's a spiritual game at the end of the day, right? Tony Robbins said, business is a spiritual game. Well, I believe all of life is a spiritual game. If it's a spiritual game, how we're feeling on the inside it's the number one. It's far more important, right? So we want to make ourselves feel good, or feel God on the inside, super blessed, super appreciative, super grateful, and then just let it unfold. I mean, I look back at the best experiences that I've had in my life, the fortunate events, even magical, I dare say, magical, wonderful, amazing events that have happened. And those have not been on my vision board. They've not been on my goal list, right? These are, I call them gifts from God. And when I look back and analyzed how those things happened, they happened because I was, as Abraham Hicks talks about, tapped in, tuned in, turned on. I was so happy at those points in my life, feeling so good, like I won the lottery, like I was on permanent vacation, right? Like I was, blessed by God himself, that I feel new experiences came into my life again that I'd never even imagined. So that's where I like to play, is kind of on that, like I say, 90-10, 80-20, spending far more time looking at my lists of appreciation, blessings, good fortune, and then tapping in a little bit to the things that I want to create. Because I do find it to be like a cocktail. Life is a cocktail. You pour all things into the mix, but you don't want to spend all your time going, oh, my life sucks because I don't have this and this and this. That is a recipe for disaster, quite frankly, and not good feelings. So there's my 2 cents. Let's continue. I learned to look at all the good in the world and to try to give it some of it back because I believed in it completely and utterly. And I tried to do that in part by telling others what I had learned. Even though so many people may have thought I sounded like a Pollyanna, by telling them this: consider the lilies in the field. Look at the fuzz on the baby's ear. Read in the backyard with the sun on your face. Learn to be happy. And think of life as a terminal illness, because if you do, you will live it with joy and passion as it ought to be lived. That's really good. Anyone can learn all those things. Out there in the world, you just need to get a life, a real life, a full life, a professional life. Yes, but another life too. School never ends. The classroom is everywhere. The exam comes at the very end. No man ever said on his deathbed, I wish I had spent more time at the office. I found one of my best teachers on the boardwalk at Coney Island many years ago. It was December and I was doing a story about how the homeless suffer in the winter months. Yeah, they do. He and I sat on the edge of the wooden supports, dangling our feet over the side. And he told me about his schedule, panhandling the boulevard when the summer crowds were gone, sleeping in a church when the temperature went below freezing, hiding from the police amid the tilt-a-whirl and the cyclone and some of the other seasonal rides. But he told me that most of the time he stayed on the boardwalk, facing the water, just the way we were sitting now, even when it got cold and he had to wear his newspapers after he read them. And I asked him why. Why didn't he go to one of the shelters? Why didn't he check himself into the hospital for detox? And he stared out at the ocean and said, look at the view, young lady. Look at the view. Wow. And every day in some little way, I try to do what he said. I try to look at the view. That's all. Words of wisdom from a man with... That's powerful. That got me. Words of wisdom from a man with not a dime in his pocket. No place to go, nowhere to be. Look at the view. When I do what he said, I am never disappointed. Wow. That was better than I expected. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I appreciate you hanging out with me and doing kind of a different thing, a live reading and talking about it. But there you go, A Short Guide to a Happy Life by Anna Quindlen. Like I said, if you want to check out One Life, you can learn more at thisismyonelife.com. And I appreciate you for checking out this video. Until next time, I wish you all the best health, wealth, and success. Have an awesome day. Bye-bye. I almost forgot to show you the pictures. Sorry about that. Let's start with the cover. Front cover. Back cover. There's Anna Quindlen, right? Hopefully that you can see that right there. Let's go through the pictures because there's a lot of pictures in this. That's why it was a little bit choppy to read. They're just nice little pictures. Here's the first one. 2 girls telling a secret. Bike on a beach. Looks like fun times right there. Two gals sitting on a fence. Winter Wonderland right here. Little girl swinging. Geese, maybe? Two friends by some water. Guy chilling in the park, maybe reading paper. This is a nice one. Beach. Windy beach. This one, plant in a window. Moon. Four people walking on the beach. You know how fun that is. One of the best things ever. Sand between the toes. You gotta love it. This guy's chilling on some funky wicker furniture. Lighthouse. Couple sitting on a bench. I'm noticing like a beach theme. Looks like this lady, maybe she's writing something. Stork? Is that a stork? Not a stork, but what's the flamingo maybe? I think storks have the big bill, right? Two sailors chilling on this stone wall. Little kid playing in water. Sandcastle. Pretty intricate sandcastle at that. Feet and legs. Nap time right here. Kid and a dog. That's my favorite so far. Gotta love that pic. Kid and a dog on the beach. Hilarious. This guy's walking and chilling in wintertime. That's it. Okay, that's it. Thank you.